A guy spent over a year researching EVs, built his entire budget around a $7,500 federal tax credit, and 2 weeks before signing, found out it was gone. Not one person at the dealership had mentioned it. He wasn't careless, he just didn't know the rules had changed. In 2026, that mistake is costing buyers thousands. Incentives have been cut, eligibility rules have been tightened, and most people have no idea. This video will change that. Let's get into it. Why 2026 is a big year for EV incentives. Here's the thing about EV incentives that most people don't realize. They were never designed to be permanent. They were always meant to push adoption during the early years of the market. And in 2026, governments around the world are starting to pull back or rewrite the rules entirely. In the United States, the federal EV purchase tax credits that millions of buyers relied on, up to $7,500 for a new EV and $4,000 for a used one, officially ended on September 30th of 2025. Vehicles acquired after that date do not qualify. The credit is gone unless Congress passes new legislation to bring it back. And as of right now, that hasn't happened. In Canada, the EV rebate program was discontinued for about a year, then brought back in February 2026, but with tighter caps and more restrictions than before. In the UK, the government has announced subsidies for new EVs but paired them with stricter price limits and a review of VAT on public charging. In Spain, the Moves 3 program wrapped up at the end of 2025 and has been replaced with a new plan that simplifies the purchase process but changes who qualifies. The pattern is the same everywhere. Governments are adjusting. Some are reducing the money available, others are tightening the eligibility requirements, and nearly all of them are shifting who benefits away from high-end buyers toward everyday drivers. Stricter tax credit requirements. Let's talk about what's actually changed in terms of who qualifies. In the US, the standard federal purchase credit is no longer available for vehicles acquired after September 30th, 2025. That's the flat reality. There is one exception worth knowing. If you signed a binding written contract and made a payment on or before September 30th, 2025, but didn't take possession of the vehicle until later, you may still be able to claim the credit when you file your taxes. Keep every piece of documentation if you're in that situation, and confirm the details with a tax professional. For everyone else shopping in 2026, the federal savings opportunity now sits with the EV charger tax credit. Section 30C. This covers 30% of eligible home charger installation costs, up to $1,000 for chargers installed in qualifying locations. It runs through June 30th, 2026, after which it's no longer available under current rules. If you're buying an EV and installing a home charger this year, that's the one federal credit still on the table. In Canada, the rebate came back at $5,000 for fully electric vehicles, but with a hard cap. The vehicle's total transaction cost, including MSRP and dealer fees, must be under $50,000. That's down from the previous $60,000 cap, and it cuts out a significant number of popular models. No all-wheel drive EV currently hits that price point, which means in practice, the rebate applies mostly to base trims and front or rear-wheel drive configurations. There's one Canadian exception that's worth noting. Vehicles built in Canada carrying no price cap at all for the rebate, and vehicles built in countries without a free trade agreement, including China, don't qualify for any rebate regardless of price. The broader point is this: not every EV qualifies anymore, even if it did before. Before you walk into a dealership in 2026, you need to know whether the specific vehicle at the specific price you're paying in the specific region you're in still qualifies for any incentive at all. New battery and supply chain rules. This one catches a lot of buyers off guard because it sounds like an industry detail, but it has direct consequences for what ends up in your wallet. Battery origin and material sourcing rules have become a central part of EV incentive eligibility in multiple countries. The logic is straightforward. Governments that are spending public money to subsidize EV adoption want that money to support domestic manufacturing, not overseas supply chains. In Canada, the new rebate program requires that a vehicle be manufactured in a country that has a free trade agreement with Canada that specifically excludes Chinese-built vehicles. A Volvo built in China doesn't qualify. A Polestar built in China doesn't qualify. Even a Tesla Model Y, which was previously shipped from China to Canada, would fall outside the rebate rules if it's still built there. In the UK and across Europe, similar pressure is building on manufacturers to demonstrate battery origin compliance if they want their vehicles to remain eligible for national incentive programs. Changes to company car and lease benefits. If you're buying or leasing through a business, or if your employer provides a company car allowance, 2026 brings changes that could meaningfully affect your total cost. In Spain, the benefit in kind value of EVs priced under 40,000 euros receives a 30% reduction for company tax purposes, and businesses can fully deduct VAT on EVs used exclusively for professional use. The country is also offering accelerated depreciation on both EVs and charging infrastructure for corporate tax purposes, which makes the business case for fleet electrification stronger than it was even last year. In the UK, the benefit in kind structure for EVs remains significantly lower than for petrol and diesel vehicles, giving company car drivers a real financial advantage. But the government is actively reviewing these rates, and the expensive car tax threshold, set at £40,000 and unchanged for years despite rising vehicle prices, is under scrutiny as more average EVs cross that line. In Canada, the rebate program as currently structured applies to consumer purchases. Leased vehicles go through a different pathway, and the eligibility rules around dealer-registered credits continue to evolve. For anyone in the fleet or business vehicle market, the tax advantages of going electric are still real in 2026, but the specific numbers are shifting. Model eligibility, price thresholds, and benefit structures are all being adjusted. Before making a fleet decision, run the current numbers with a tax advisor who knows your region's updated rules, because the calculation that made sense a year ago may have changed. If this is saving you money already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover the EV market in real terms, not press releases. Expansion of low-emission zones. While some incentives are shrinking, one advantage of EV ownership is actively growing: access. Cities across the UK, Europe, and increasingly North America are expanding low-emission zones, and in many cases, only zero-emission vehicles, meaning EVs, can enter certain areas without paying a fee or facing restrictions. This is no longer a future concern. It's happening right now. In Spain, municipalities including Madrid, Barcelona, and Valencia are applying significant discounts on annual road tax for EVs and expanding low-emission zone access for BEV owners. UK cities are moving in the same direction, with congestion charge exemptions for EVs and restrictions tightening on internal combustion engine vehicles in urban centers. For everyday drivers, this means EV ownership is starting to come in real, tangible advantages in urban areas, not just on fuel costs, but on where you can drive, when, and how much it costs to do so. As these zones expand in 2026 and beyond, the gap between owning an EV and owning a petrol or diesel car in a major city is going to get wider, not narrower. If you live in or regularly drive into a city, this is a factor worth building into your decision now. Used EV incentives and new buyer protections. This is probably the least talked about shift in the 2026 EV landscape, and it's one that opens up real opportunities for buyers who aren't shopping new. Several states in the US still have active EV incentives, separate from the now expired federal $4,000 used EV credit. Illinois offers rebates up to $4,000 for new or used EVs. Colorado, Connecticut, Maine, New Jersey, and Rhode Island all have active programs with varying amounts and eligibility rules. California's income-eligible programs continue to offer meaningful support for used EV buyers in certain districts. These are not small amounts. And because the used EV market has grown significantly, the selection available to buyers using these programs is much better than it was 2 or 3 years ago. At the same time, buyer protections around used EVs are evolving. Battery health certification standards are being developed in multiple markets, and extended warranty requirements for used EVs are being introduced in certain regions. This matters because the biggest concern most used EV buyers have is battery condition, and clearer standards around how battery health is disclosed and certified are starting to address that directly. If you've been holding off used EVs because of uncertainty around battery condition or resale value, 2026 is the year those concerns start to have more structured answers. What this means if you're buying in 2026. Let's put it plainly. The EV incentive landscape in 2026 is more complex than it has ever been, and the consequences of getting it wrong are more expensive than they've ever been. The days of simple, wide-open federal credit applying to almost any EV purchase are over, at least for now. What's replaced them is a patchwork of state, regional, and national programs with specific vehicle price caps, income limits, sourcing requirements, and application windows. Some of these programs are generous, some are running out of funding, and most of them require you to do the homework before you sign anything. Before you buy an EV in 2026, here's what you need to do. First, check the updated eligibility rules for every incentive program that applies to your location: federal, state, or provincial, local, and utility. Second, verify that the specific vehicle you're considering at the trim level and price you're actually paying qualifies under those rules. Third, confirm whether there are local tax benefits, charging rate discounts, or registration advantages that apply to your zip code or city. And understand this clearly. Waiting or rushing could cost you thousands. Some programs are time limited and will close mid-year. Others are being adjusted in the second half of 2026. If a credit exists today that applies to a vehicle you're planning to buy anyway, there is a real risk in delaying without a reason. The owners who get the best deals on EVs in 2026 won't be the ones who got lucky. They'll be the ones who checked the rules before they showed up at the dealership, not after. The bottom line: 2026 is a turning point for EV incentives globally. The era of broad, generous, easy-to-qualify credits is giving way to something more targeted, more conditional, and more complicated to navigate. That's not necessarily bad news. There is still real money available for buyers who know where to look: state programs, utility rebates, and federal charger credit, used EV incentives, and company tax benefits. But you have to look, you have to verify, and you have to do it before you buy, not after. Start by checking the incentive programs specific to your state or region. Verify the build origin and price eligibility of any vehicle you're seriously considering. If you're installing a home charger, move on that before June 30th to capture the Section 30C credit while it's still available. Drop a comment below. Are you planning to buy an EV this year? Or has the incentive situation changed your timeline? We read every one. And subscribe if you want to stay ahead of what's changing in the EV world in 2026, because the rules are still moving.